Hello humans! The iPad 5th generation has been released for 1.5 years already. And I had this device for 1 year. So here's my 1 year review of my iPad. And this, I also upgraded the iOS version to iPad OS 13. And I already made a separate video about that. But let's start. So the design, it's just like any other iPad. It has the same build as the iPad Air 1. The iPad Air 2 honestly had a better design, but hey, that's in 2016. We're in 2019 now, and it's time to review this in 2019. So the design, it's pretty much like an iPad if you see one, because we all know that Android tablets suck, but the iPad is mediocre at best. So on the right, you get your volume buttons. On the bottom, you get your lightning port. You also get your dual speakers, or sort of stereo. I also made a separate video on that. In the left side, you get nothing. In the top, you get a headphone jack, one microphone, your power button. And the back, you get your 8 megapixel rear camera that is awful indoors, your secondary microphone, your Apple logo, and some engraved text. In the front, you find a 9.7 inch what Apple calls Retina display, and your awful 1.2 megapixel camera. One thing about the design is that the aluminum on this thing is extremely malleable. This thing is like bent, especially this corner. And what's even more surprising is I can actually bend it. So it's extremely malleable. And I've using a case, which is also malleable, because its TPU can bend. So I have bends all over this place. Furthermore, I need to mention that this is a third-party glass. I've replaced my original glass, and this third-party glass cracked. Well, it's third-party. You can't expect it to be Gorilla Glass or whatever. And fingerprint scanner, Touch ID does not work anymore. Let's move on to the display. The display, it is a 1536 by 2048 display, 4:3 aspect ratio. It is an LCD, which is not that surprising for a tablet. And the 264 pixels per inch, that's what Apple calls Retina display. Now you might be wondering, that is even less pixels per inch than a phone, a 720p phone, because most phones are 1080p except for the iPhone XR and the iPhone 11. But you might be wondering, how is that still a high resolution display? But get this, you look at your tablet about 1 foot away, and your phone you look like this close. So there's actually a difference, you know. So at 264 pixels per inch, if you look at it from 1 feet away, like I hope you look at it from 1 feet away, you probably won't see the pixels. You have to like put your face against the screen, or maybe like even in the corner of the display, just to even see the pixels. But this camera does not have macro. That's something in the Huawei Mate 20 though, not the Mate 10. I shall also mention that this glare, the backlight on this thing is crazy. If you are going to use this in low light, it's probably not a good idea. It will probably like, I don't know, strain your eyes, because the backlight emitted from this LCD is extremely bright. Inside the iPad 5th generation, you get the Apple A9 chip. It is a processor found in the iPhone 6s back in 2015. So basically, Apple is still using like 2 generations behind processors in their iPads. So the 5th generation is a dual core 1.85 gigahertz, 16 nanometers. That doesn't sound good on paper. And then 2.2 benchmark, it scored a 150,000, which is fine for normal tasks, YouTube, social media, and whatever, and some moderate gaming like Angry Birds 2s with a little lag but playable. But just don't get into any intensive games, as you will experience a lot of lags, or you have to turn down the settings. And I don't play games where you turn down the settings, so I have no experience on that at all. What's also inside this iPad is an 8,827 milliamp battery. What's also included in the box is a 12-watt charger. So if you're like me, I charge my iPad at 15 and I stop charging at 85. Just charging 70% takes me 4 hours to charge this thing. So yes, you get a big battery. It's actually one of the best battery life on the tablets. Well, it's not rated Energy Star, but it can last you a day fine. And plus, I should also mention it's lightning port, so it's the same speed as like a micro USB, so transfer speeds are gonna be extremely slow. The 12-watt adapter included in the box, which is, yes, it's slow. It charges your iPad really slow, so you have to wait for a long time. I usually don't charge my devices overnight, so this is something that takes me off. Something that takes me even more off, that this thing does not support Apple fast charging. So if you want to like buy a fast charger in a box or in the Apple Store, that's not going to be compatible. The adapter also gets really toasty hot while charging, but that's not a problem. It's just the adapter and not the tablet itself. Okay. Normally, people don't buy tablets for this cameras, but I'm going to review them anyways. So anyway, this is the camera I use to do my YouTube videos. This is an 8 megapixel f2.4 lens. It has a standard 32mm angle, which is not exactly wide. It's actually like a main sensor. Phones are usually 28mm now. This thing is still stuck at 32 or it's at 35. So the angle you get with this is really not big. And here are some image samples. So I want you to look at this. Now remember, there are processing done to this image, but this is what it looks like in real life. Again, take my image shots with like a pinch of salt. And remember, there is algorithms applied, but once you compare to something like this, the colors just appear washed out on the camera. I did not turn on the light, because this is what happens when you turn on the light. It actually looks worse, so I'll actually stick to turning it off. But this phone, the Mate 10, can fare well in low light because it's a phone, it has night mode, and this doesn't. So don't take images in the indoors. That's why I'm actually trying to do some of my YouTube videos outdoors now, because the camera sucks indoors. Even at outdoors, the colors will still appear washed out. And if you want to see my ugly face taken from the selfie camera, well, here you go. Look at how pixelated this is. 1.2 megapixels. That has only enough megapixels to fill up like roughly about 1/4 of the screen resolution. So it doesn't have enough pixels to fill up the entire screen. So what you get is a blurry selfie that hopefully hides my acne. So cameras, they suck and I can't, but I'm just using this to do my YouTube videos for now. Are there any other things that I should mention? There's nothing much. This is my 1 year review of the iPad. I did not do an initial review, so I did not mention all of the stuff, like the iOS. It's iOS 13 right now. I think it can be upgraded to iOS 15 based on Apple's 5 years. But I did not do a full review. I mostly just did a review of what's lagging behind. I did not do any review of like the things that are not lagging behind or things that are actually good. Well, there isn't anything that's good in it in 2019 standards. But this is some things that will be lagging behind in 2019, and this is my 1 year review.